Hi, thanks for watching the video. I'm Todd Baginski. I'm a Microsoft MVP and the partner and CTO at Canvas. In this video, I'm going to show you how to set up the HR onboarding Power Apps sample template. If you're watching this video, you're already at a place where you've been able to find the link to download all the code for this sample template. I've cloned that code here on my machine, and I've opened it in Visual Studio Code. The steps that I'm walking through inside of this video are also outlined and detailed inside of the readme.md file that you can see I have open here. Before you get started, make sure that you have satisfied the prerequisites you see listed here. I already have all these prerequisites accomplished on my end, so now I'm ready to start the video. Let's get started and create the HR onboarding SharePoint list. This list will store all the onboarding information for new employees inside of the HR onboarding Power Apps solution. We've created a site script that you can use to make a site design that will allow you to quickly stand up a SharePoint site with the HR onboarding list and all the columns in the schema that matches up with this Power Apps solution. To do that, what you're going to do is first open up the SharePoint Online Management shell. Once you open up the SharePoint Online Management shell, then you will want to change to the directory where you have cloned this code on your local machine. So I'll type in the path here to where I've put that code. And then after I do that, what I'm going to do is start editing the different PowerShell commands here that I'm going to run. The first one that I'm going to edit is this org name variable. This is the name of your Office 365 organization. So for example, if I come back to the SharePoint site inside of the site collection, or pardon me, the Office 365 tenant where I'd like to install this, I can see here CAND3 is the actual name of my org here. So I'm going to copy that value and then replace the value back here inside the PowerShell code. Then I'll paste that in and create that org name. Then I'm going to use the connect-spo service commandlet here. And that's going to prompt me to log in. First, I enter my username and then my password. Then click the sign in button. This establishes a context with the Office 365 tenant I wish to administer. Now it's time to create the site script. We're going to execute this command right here to do it. This HR onboarding list.json file defines the site script that creates the HR onboarding list and all the columns it needs to have. We get content out of that file and then we pipe it into the add spo site script command here and give it the title HR onboarding list. That's how we create the actual site script. So I'll put that command in there and run it. After I run the command, then I get back the ID, or this GUID here, that defines the ID for that particular site script I just made. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to replace this ID placeholder here in the PowerShell code with that ID. And then I'm going to execute this command to actually create a site design that includes that site script we just installed. Now that I've got that done, I can proceed to create the SharePoint list inside of the SharePoint site for this solution. To create the SharePoint site, first go to portal.office.com, and then after you log in, click SharePoint in the list of apps. Once you get to this page, in the top, click Create Site. On the right side, select Team Site. Then in the Choose a Site Design drop-down, pick HR Onboarding. Then enter a name. I'm just going to call mine HR-Onboard. After I've done that, I'll click the Next button. Here you can add additional owners to the site or members. For example, if I wish to add Elisa Lawyer, I can put her email address, or at least the start of it, here in the Add Members text box and select her. Then I can click Finish. At this point, the site is created, and on the right side, we can see the status of the site script executing to create that HR onboarding list. It's already done. Now we'll click View Updated Site. This refreshes the page, at which point we can go on the left-hand side and click the Site Contents button. Here we can see the HR onboarding list has been created. I can click on it to navigate to it. If this SharePoint list is empty, the Power BI report will not successfully be able to change data sources in our next installation step. Since that's the case, I'm going to add a record now. Now you can see I've added a sample record. Our next step is to move on and create the Power BI workspace. To create the Power BI workspace, go to app.powerbi.com and then log in with an account that has a Power BI Pro license. Then click Workspaces. It's a good idea to search for the workspace to make sure it was not automatically created when you made the site. In this case, mine was, and you can see it has the same name as my site, HR-Onboard. If your workspace has not been created automatically, click the Create App Workspace button, enter the name of your workspace here, the members you wish to add, then click the Add button, and finally click Save. After the workspace is created, then you can click on it to go to it and view it like this. The next step is creating the Power BI dashboard. To create the dashboard, first go to the file system on your local machine where you clone the repository. Then go to the resource folder. Inside that folder, locate the Power BI report and double-click it to open it. Once you've opened the report, go to the top in the ribbon and select Edit Queries. This will open the Power Query Editor. Then click Data Source Settings. After you've done that, click Change Source. Now you're going to enter the URL to the SharePoint site you created in previous steps. Return to the web browser where you created the SharePoint site and copy this portion of the URL. Then return back to the Power Query Editor and paste in the URL. Then click OK. After you've done that, click Close to update your changes. Then at the top, click Refresh Preview. If you need to edit your credentials, click the Edit Credentials button, and then select Microsoft Account and click Sign In. Sign in with the same account you used to create the SharePoint list, and then select the site. Finally, click the Connect button. After you've connected to the data, you will see it appear here inside the editor. Then click Close and Apply. After you've done that, it's time to publish the report. To publish the report, click the Publish button in the ribbon. Then select Yes to save your changes. You'll then be presented with a menu that allows you to choose the HR onboarding workspace you created earlier. Here it is. I will select that and then click Select. Now we're publishing up to that workspace. When the publishing process is complete, we can return to the Power BI workspace in the web browser and check it out. You can see we've successfully published the report. Now let's go back to the web browser and return to Power BI. If we open up the HR onboard, we can now see that we have a data set as well as a report inside of the workspace. To open a report, we can simply click on it in the list. After you've done that, put your mouse over the different graphics inside of the report until you see the little menu bar appear in the top right. Once you've done that, click the Pin Visual button. Then create a new dashboard. I typed in the name HR-Onboard to match everything else I've done. Next, click the Pin button. Then create the pinned reports for the exact same process in these other visualizations on the page. So here's my second one. and I'll go up and click Pin again. I'm going to pick the same dashboard and click Pin. Finally, the one at the bottom of the page, I'll repeat the process again, and again click Pin. Now we're ready to set up a scheduled refresh of the data. To set up a scheduled refresh for the data, click the ellipsis next to the HR Onboarding Report Dataset section, like you see here. Then click Schedule Refresh. Click on the link for Edit Credentials. In the authentication method, pick OAuth 2, then click Sign In. Now sign in with the account you used to create the SharePoint list. Once you've done that, you have successfully authenticated and you have scheduled the refresh. Let's go ahead and do our first refresh now. Click on the Reports ellipsis again in the Datasets section and pick Refresh Now to refresh the data immediately. We're now ready to move on and create the groups that this sample depends on. To create the groups, first I open Windows PowerShell command window as an administrator. Then I change to the directory where I downloaded all the files that came with this solution. After I've done that, I'll enter this command to change my execution policy, and then I'll type in the letter A here to say yes to all. This will allow me to run the PowerShell script that creates the groups. Next, I'll enter this command to actually create the groups. This command will then prompt me to log in with the user I would like to use to create the groups. I have to log in as a SharePoint Global Administrator for this to work. Once I've provided those credentials, I'll click the OK button. Now the script will start working to create the Office 365 groups. Once the script finishes, execute this command to set your execution policy back to the default, and then type in A and hit Enter to confirm. Next, create the SharePoint connection that the Power App will use to connect to the data. To do this, go to web.powerapps.com and log in. After you've done that, expand the data menu on the left side and click Connections. Then click the New Connection button at the top. After you've done that, in the search box, enter SharePoint and press Enter. Then select the SharePoint connector and click the Create button. Pick the account that has permission to access the data in the SharePoint list to sign in. You've now successfully created the SharePoint connection you'll use in the Power App. The next step is to import the HR Onboarding Power App. To do that, again, you go to web.powerapps.com like I've done here. This time, click Apps in the left menu. Then at the top of the page, click Import Package. Then click the Upload button. After you click the Upload button, navigate to your local file system where you've cloned these files, and within the Resource folder, select which Power App you'd like to install. You can do it for one or both if you'd like. The one with the name Mobile in it is designed to work with phones. The one named Pad will work with tablets or desktop devices. In this example, I'm going to show how to install the one that targets the tablet and desktop versions, but the steps are the same except for which piece I import here. After you've selected the file you want, click the Open button and the package will begin to upload. Once the package is uploaded, you'll see this screen. Verify that the import setup is set to Create as New, and then click the Import button. When the import process is complete, you'll see this message at the top of the page that indicates all package resources were successfully imported. Now you can configure the Power App. To configure the Power App, click on the Apps link, and now you'll see the HR Onboarding Pad Power App, in my case here, because I installed this one, listed inside of the list. Click the list ellipsis next to it and select Edit. This will open up the Power Apps editor and allow you to configure the Power App. When you're prompted to allow the connections to SharePoint and Power BI, click Allow. Now the Power App is fully loaded. We can now change the connection to our HR onboarding list and recreate it to point to the environment that we made. To do so, click the View button in the menu and select Data Sources. Then in the data pane, select the ellipsis next to the SharePoint connection and pick Remove. Now you can add the connection back. To do so, click Add Data Source. Then select any SharePoint connection that you've created. After you've selected the SharePoint connection, check to see if your site is listed in the recent sites. If it's not, then go back to the SharePoint site and copy the URL, then return to the Power App. Paste the URL into the text box here and click Go. Then select the HR onboarding list and finally click Connect. You're now connected to the SharePoint list. There's one last piece of configuration to do, and that's configuring the Power BI report. To configure the Power BI report, in the Screens section on the left, expand the Report screen. Then, select the existing Power BI control here for PBI Report Employees in Progress. In the data pane, select the data property here. Then in the Workspace, choose the workspace that you created. Do the same thing for the dashboard, and for the tile here, pick Employees in Process. After you've done that, then select the Power BI report control called PBI Report Days in Process, this one here. Repeat the process. Select the data control, pick the workspace you made before, as well as the dashboard, and then select Days in Process. Finally, the last Power BI control to configure is this one called PBI Report Average Days. Select that control and then repeat the process. Pick the workspace, the dashboard, and then here, the days, average days to onboard is what you're looking for. When you're done, click File and select Save. After you've saved your changes, click Publish and then publish this version. Your changes are now available to everyone you grant access to this app. We're now ready to create the connections that our flow will use to connect to data. There are 3 different connections we will make. One to SharePoint, one to Office 365 Outlook, and one to Office 365 Groups. To create these connections, first go to flow.microsoft.com and log in. You can see I've done that here. In the left-hand side, expand the data menu and select Connections. To add the SharePoint connection, click New Connection at the top and select SharePoint. If you don't see SharePoint in the list, enter it in the search box in the top right to find it. Click the Create button. Select the account you used to make the SharePoint list, and now you've created that connection. We'll now repeat that step for the Office 365 Outlook and Office 365 Group connectors. To create the one for Outlook, I can type Outlook into the top right, then select Microsoft connector here for Office 365 Outlook, click Create, and again, pick the account that you logged in with. And now you have that connection created. The final connection to create is the one for the groups. Again, click New Connection, type in Group in the search box, select Office 365 Groups, then Create, select the user again, and now you've created all the connections. We're now ready to import the flow. To import the flow, first click the My Flows menu option on the left. At the top of the page, click Import. Then click the Upload button. Now select the HR onboarding flow from the resource folder inside of the solution that you cloned. Then click the Open button. This starts uploading the flow. You're then presented with a page that looks like this. First, verify the import step for the HR onboarding flow is set to create as new. Then, for each of the connectors in the Related Resources section, click Select during import and pick the connector that you just created. Then click Save. After you've done this part, you can then go ahead and click the Import button here to finish importing the flow. Once the flow has finished importing, it will show you this message at the top that says all package resources were successfully imported. We can now move on to modifying the HR onboarding flow. To modify the HR onboarding flow, go back to the list under the My Flows section. After you've done that, click the pencil icon next to the HR onboarding flow. There's going to be several different places we need to update the URL and the list name for the SharePoint list to match the environment we imported to. The first one is located at the very top of our flow, right here in the middle. This one called New Employee Form Created. Click this action to expand it. Then go back to your SharePoint site and copy the URL. Return to your flow, click the Delete button next to Site Address, and at the bottom, click Enter Custom Value. Then paste in the URL to your SharePoint site, click the X next to List Name, and select the HR onboarding list. The other places we need to do the same exact updates are at the bottom in the Flow Designer. They are Update Account Status to Completed, Update Equipment Delivery Status to Completed, Update Mailbox Status to Completed, Update Video Training Status to Completed, and finally, at the bottom, the New Employee Form Completed. I'm going to go ahead and update all of those now. Now you can see I've made those exact same changes for all of the different actions that I previously talked about, and they're all complete. There's just 3 actions left to complete, and we're done configuring the flow. These actions are the ones that use the Office 365 Groups connector. They are Get IT Department Members, Get IT Equipment Department Managers, and Get Corporate Training Department Members. We're going to replace all of these group IDs with the group IDs that were returned when we executed the PowerShell to create the groups. I'll update these values now. I've already changed the group IDs for the first 2 actions that interact with the Office 365 Groups connector. I'm going to show you how you can do it. Here's how you do it. You do the drop-down list, go down to the bottom if you don't see your group, click Enter Custom Value, then paste in the GUID that you got back from that PowerShell script. After you've done this, you're then ready to save your flow. And so to do that, you go up to the top and click the Save button. Congratulations, your configuration is 100% done. You're now ready to play the Power App and test it out. To play the Power App, return to web.powerapps.com. Then click the ellipsis next to the HR Onboarding Power App you created and click Play. After you've clicked Play, you'll be prompted to allow the connection to Power BI. You can now click the Allow button, and we now have the fully running sample. Please check out my video, which describes how to run this sample end-to-end and use all the functionality in it. We hope this video and this particular sample comes in very handy for you as you develop your own Power App solutions, and maybe even you'll use this one as is for your company. In any case, I hope it helps you out, and thanks for watching the video. I'll see you next time.